Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to do top reefing mistakes that you should avoid. Hello and welcome back to Amra Azul TV. I'm thrilled to announce that the channel is now up to 4,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for all of your support and viewership. I really appreciate it. And I know I've been a little bit slow on the video front. Work has been a bit hectic, but I'm still, planning and working on videos. They're just gonna come out a little bit slower. So I've been getting a lot of requests for making a video on tips on how to be a successful reef keeper. And I'm a little bit concerned about doing these videos because it kind of suggests that I'm an expert. But this is my first tank, guys. Literally, this is my first proper reef tank with a sump. And I don't want to go ahead and tell you do this or do that and lecture and give you advice, because this is my only tank, my first tank, and I just really don't know what made it successful, right? For all we know, all of this could just be luck. So until I have more reef tanks in my experience, I'm going to refrain from pretending to be an expert and telling you what you should be doing. But there's one thing that I can talk about is the mistakes that I've made. So this is what this video is going to be about. Mistakes that I've made during this build and things that hopefully you could learn from my mistakes, so that way when you're setting up your reef tank, you don't do the same thing. All right, I'm going to start with number 6. And the first mistake that I did is not appreciating how much electrical equipments and outlets I'm going to need. So when I decided to place this tank here, there's only one power, not power bar, but one power outlet supplying this tank, and it's right in the back here. And I did think ahead and replace this outlet. So this just has two spots to plug in, two plugs essentially. And I did replace those with a GFCI outlet, but it's clearly not enough for. So I have one outlet for this power bar and the other outlet for this guy, but I'm really running out of outlets. So I'm getting to a point where if I need to add one more bit of equipment, I have to kind of decide which equipment I'm going to take off online. So if I had to do this all over again, what I would do is essentially give me 2 more additional outlets in the back of the tank, so that way I'm able to have and run all of the equipment that I need for my tank. So that was mistake number 6, not thinking about the electrical demand for my tank. I kind of underestimated. I thought 2 plugs will have it covered, but in reality I would have been much more comfortable with 4. If you guys have been watching, you know that I'm running LEDs, and I think LEDs are great lights for growing and coloring your SPS and other corals, but they do have this spotlight problem, and you can actually kind of see the spotlight problem, right? There's a spotlight right here, right underneath where the puck is. So as light is going down, it starts out being highly intense right underneath this puck, and then it spreads out a little bit. So as the light penetrates more into the water, the more that it spreads and the more even it becomes. So my problem is, when I initially designed my aquascape, is I had it really high, and the problem when you have the rocks really high up in the tank is essentially it exaggerates the spotlight problem, right? The closer you get to the light, the more intense and the smaller the spotlight becomes. So I essentially should have had to, for my light setup, I probably would have done a lot better if I had all of my SPS near the bottom of my tank, where the light is going to be pretty even, and I could compensate for the lower part by just turning up the light. But by moving my aquascape up, I'm essentially exaggerating the hotspot problem, and I'm getting a lot of variance as we go from here to the middle, to underneath the light again, to between lights, to underneath the light again. Another kind of minor issue that I didn't think of when aquascaping my tank is I put the SPS directly on the rock, and I gave the colonies too much of a space to grow unopposed, And this essentially resulted in a few colonies taking over, which is becoming a bit of a headache for me. I know we all want to have big colonies, but this blueberry wine, I have plans to re-aquascape this side of the tank because I'm just not happy with how all of this space is taken up by a single Acropora colony. So I could have done a better job of figuring out solutions to mount frags in a way that will allow the colonies to kind of not in a way that will prevent one colony kind of taking over the space. Having a reef tank requires doing a lot of water changes, always replenishing your RODI reservoir. All of these take time, and it was only in the past like a few months that I've started thinking about automation and how to improve this. But that meant that for about 2.5 years or 3 years, I've been having to lug 15 liters of water up and down from the basement and so on. So don't underestimate the amount of time that you have to put into the tank, and try to think ahead. If in hindsight, if I know what I know about reef keeping now, I don't think this would have been a good location for my system. I think a better location would be somewhere that is closer to my RODI system, and somewhere where I'm able to essentially do automatic water changes a little bit more effectively. So think about the work involved in keeping your tank, and try to think long term and plan your tank in a way that will facilitate automation down the line. All right, tip number 3 is not using a mesh lid on my tank. So despite what anybody says, all fish are capable of jumping, right? Fish could swim really fast, and it's all a matter of just getting the right angle. And before you know it, they're accelerating to the surface and they're clearing your tank on the floor, gasping for air. So I made the mistake of running my tank with no lid for about 1.5 years. When I first got this tank, I really liked the open top look, and I thought it's kind of great that I could just look in. And the open top look does look a little bit cleaner. But then I lost my leopard wrasse, which I really enjoyed. And then I ordered a lid right away. And between the time that I ordered the lid and when I actually received the lid, I lost 2 additional fish, yellow chorus wrasse and a clownfish. So these deaths really upset me because I really love my fish, I love my system, and I don't want to be responsible for killing these exotic pets that we have that have like traveled hundreds of miles from the ocean to our tank here. So I'm trying to be the best reef keeper that I could be, and that involves being responsible for the livestock that you have. And I think having a mesh lid like this goes a long way towards preventing unnecessary fish death. All right, my second mistake to avoid is to try to eyeball the light intensity for your LEDs. So the best way to do this is to get a par meter or rent a par meter or borrow a par meter. I essentially had 0 success with keeping my SPS happy when I was just trying to eyeball light levels or use intensities that other people have had success with. And literally as soon as I started using my Senai par meter, I was able to quickly adjust the lights and make sure that the SPS were getting the appropriate bar for color and growth. So that's a really simple solution to tuning your lights. Just either invest in a par meter or rent one or borrow one. And then finally, my number 1 mistake to avoid is stop chasing numbers and stop overreacting to nuisance algae. So we've all been there where we had like a little bit of cyano in the tank, and the temptation is just to quickly look for a fix. So that is often in the form of a little chemical that you buy from your local fish store. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be vigilant, but I feel like sometimes you go in with good intentions to trying to solve a problem, but then having that solution that you have either hurt your corals or upset the stability of your system. So I've had many problems with trying to find a quick fix. One of the biggest regrets that I have is when my tank was about, I think maybe a little bit less than a year, there was this product called Vibrant that was hailed as the miracle cure for algae, and my tank was kind of happy. I had just a few patches of green hair algae here and there, and I wanted to get rid of them, right? Who doesn't want a tank that is free of algae? And I used this product, and it literally had my tank reeling for a good few months. I got Cyano, and then I got Dino, and I spent like a few months with the tank looking really, really ugly. And all of that because I tried to use a product that was labeled to kind of make my life easier by getting rid of algae. So stop looking for quick fixes. Don't try to go nuts with maintaining just a very specific narrow set of parameters and freaking out whenever your tank goes a little bit out of whack. It's one of those things that you get better at as you become more experienced, is just kind of realizing when things are off and when things are good. So when I started, I used to like measure and test for everything. Now the only thing that I test for is alkalinity, and I occasionally test for nitrates and phosphates, but only if I'm like noticing something weird. So let your eye and your feeling and be your guide, and don't try to overreact and look for quick fixes, because often that leads to more instability, which sets your tank back. Okay guys, thank you so much. Hopefully these tips were helpful, and please let me know if I missed anything critical, and see you around.